Hi, I'm Captain Kris Maxfield with the West Jordan Fire Department. Several weeks ago, I was asked to present a PowerPoint explaining our role in the California wildfires in December. 6 of us were deployed. We were there for 14 days total. We protected homes, we protected businesses, structures, large infrastructure like water treatment plants. We protected racehorses and other important things. In the PowerPoint that follows, I'll explain some of the things we did and how we lived and how our accommodations were while we were there.
Hi, I'm Captain Kris Maxfield. I've been asked here at a council meeting today to discuss and educate you a little bit on the California wildfire deployment that 6 of us firefighters from the West Jordan Fire Department took part in. Just a little background for you. The California wildfire deployment, we were deployed for a total of 14 days to Southern California. While we were there, we assisted with 2 separate incidents. The first was called the Lilac 5 Fire in North San Diego County, and the second was called the Thomas Fire, and that was in Ventura County. A little background on CAL FIRE, the agency that requested our help. Just to give you an idea of how big they are and what a big machine CAL FIRE is. CAL FIRE employs 5,400 full-time firefighters, 2,400 seasonal, 5,300 volunteer, and manages 4,300 inmates. They have a $2 billion budget, 967 fire engines, 57 bulldozers, 23 air tankers, and 12 helicopters. The reason I tell you that is I want to kind of give you an idea just how significant it is for an agency like that to ask for help from another state. With those types of resources, that doesn't even include the local municipalities in Southern California. So for them to reach out to us was a really big deal. As I mentioned earlier, 6 total West Jordan firefighters were deployed. We took Engine 52, which is stationed next to City Hall, and we shared or cross-staffed a Type 6 engine, 2 of our guys with Sandy Fire. We were assigned as a task force. Our designation was Utah 2. This task force was comprised of West Jordan, South Jordan, Sandy, and Salt Lake City Fire Department resources. In total, our task force had 3 Type 1 engines, 3 Type 6s, and 2 support vehicles. Type 1 engine is just like you think of when you think of a fire truck. So this is Engine 52 and Engine 62 from South Jordan. So you think fire truck, that's a Type 1. A Type 6 is what we might call a brush truck. We call it an auxiliary. In the wildland world, they call it a Type 6. It's the little Salt Lake City pickup truck right there. The request for help from California didn't come from CAL FIRE. It came through the California Office of Emergency Services, or Cal OES, on the 6th of December. By 5:30 in the morning on the 7th, 98 firefighters and 25 fire engines from Utah were en route to Southern California. We arrived in the LA County and were reassigned immediately before even arriving at our staging destination to the Lilac Fire in San Diego County, which had started while we were en route to California. While we were deployed, we worked 24-hour shifts, 24 hours on the fire line, and then we were allowed 24 hours off the fire line to refuel, restock, and recuperate. Some people have asked since we went and returned, simple questions like, where did you guys eat and sleep? Accommodations varied. So on the first night, we were sent to San Diego County. We were put up in a hotel, as you can see in the picture on the left. We thought, man, this is going to be easy street. What an easy deployment we're going to have. We should have known that wasn't going to last long. If you can see the picture on the right, these were our other accommodations in North San Diego County. This is a bunkhouse and a small ranch. Very reminiscent of our old days in the fire stations when we shared a common bunk room. Other accommodations at the Thomas Fire, we were located at the Ventura County Fairgrounds. And for sleep accommodations on the concrete, they didn't want us sleeping in tents on the ground or sleeping bags. So they brought in these specialized sleep trailers. You can see on the picture on the right that they were stacked 3 high front to back in these trailers. Very reminiscent of sleeping in a submarine. On the fire line, accommodations were whatever we could find. We were expected to be self-sustaining for 24 hours, up to 48 if something were to happen and they needed us to stay. So we slept in different places, from on the lawns of the houses that we were protecting, like the picture on the left, or the picture on the right is what we lovingly referred to as Camp Utah, which was the parking lot of a water treatment facility in Santa Barbara County. Food in camp was good. Some of the 4,300 inmate employees of CAL FIRE would run these small catering trucks and trailers, and that's the cafeteria at the Ventura Fire on the left. On the line, things were a little bit different. Like I said, they wanted us to be self-sustainable for 24 to 48 hours, so they would supply us in the morning with what we called the 5-pound lunch. So these were just a giant sack lunch, 4 liters, 1 gallon of food, 10,000 calories in each bag. And you can see that's just an example of some of the things they had in there. And that was expected to sustain us for the entire 24. So that was breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. Our daily routine while we were out there was pretty fixed. Each morning we'd get up about 5:30, clean up our bedding in order to make it to briefing at base camp at 0700 or 7 o'clock in the morning. After that, we would receive all of our paperwork, which outlined our different assignments. We would get together as a group and we would discuss our objectives, the weather and hazards, etc. with our crews. After that, we would get everybody together, make sure we had all the resources and the lunches we needed, and we would roll out to whatever divisional assignment we had. There we would meet with our division supervisor. We would once again discuss hazards specific to that local area, discuss our objectives and the things that he wanted us to do tactically to make those objectives come. And after that, we would head to our designated area and we would get to work. You could see TJ here doing some good saw work on some trees that were on fire, cutting those down, overhauling those, and making sure that they weren't a threat. After working our 24-hour shift from 7 a.m. to 7, our relief would show up at about 0800 or 8 o'clock in the morning. There are 0900 after they had been briefed, met with their crews, and had made it out to the division to relieve us. Once they got out there, we would meet with them. We would discuss the things that we were able to accomplish. We would reinforce the objectives for them, inform them of any local hazards or anything they needed to know, and then we would head back to camp. And of course, just like any good government function, there was lots and lots of paperwork, so we would complete our paperwork. Then we would refuel, we would restock, and head to wherever we were being put up for the night to try to recover, which normally we were able to get there around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, all of our other things taken care of, and we're able to try to catch up on some much-needed sleep. The Lilac 5 fire was the one in North San Diego County, the first fire that we went to. That one started on December 7th, ended up burning a total of 4,100 acres, 157 structures, and 3 firefighters were injured, one of which was a Salt Lake City firefighter who was on our task force. He had a tree branch fall on his head while he was overhauling and scouting at night. This was our divisional area on the Lilac 5. You can see this small area marked 21. Many people saw on the news the footage of the racehorses being chased out by the fire and the smoke. It was pretty chaotic and a really, really sad situation there. That's where we were assigned there in Division K. We stayed just across the road from where that footage was taken at a small ranch. This is the ranch we were assigned to protect while we were down there. And while we were there protecting that house, we were also tasked with protecting a high-value livestock. This picture here is a horse named Nyquist, happens to be the Kentucky Derby winner from several years back, I'm told. This was one of the horses that we were protecting along with 6 of his friends. While we were there, we were assigned to extinguish hot-spots, make sure that the fire was out, coordinate helicopter drops, perform night patrols, which had its benefits at times. Once the Lilac 5 fire was under control, we were immediately reassigned to the Thomas fire in Ventura. The Thomas fire started on December 4th. It was the fire that initiated the EMAC requests throughout the 10 or 11 states from California OES. In total, it burned 281,000 and some change acres, ended up being the largest in California wildfire history. In total, 8,000 firefighters and over 1,000 fire engines were assigned to this fire at its peak. 1,063 structures were destroyed, 1 civilian was killed, and 1 firefighter was also killed. This is our divisional area while we were there. So these are the mountains and the foothills above Santa Barbara. Down to the south there is Monticino, and just out of frame underneath the address bar is Oprah's house and Ellen's house. You see the 2 red lines, everything within that area, those several thousand, 3,000 homes, whatever it may be, were all our responsibility while we were there. The fire was moving that direction. It was 2 to 3 miles away, and we were tasked with structured triage and PR. We were asked to go through the neighborhoods, knock on these doors, talk to the residents who weren't evacuated yet, let them know that evacuations could be coming if weather conditions were to change. We did our very best to represent CAL FIRE, the people that had asked us to come and help, and it was a real privilege to watch the West Jordan firefighters represent our own department in the neighborhoods of Santa Barbara. Also very humbling to look at someone's home, even if it's in another state, and talk to that person and get to know that person over the course of a week and know that you have a part in determining whether or not their house will be protected if the fire does make it to that area. Another key component to our deployment to the Thomas fire was area familiarization. Like I mentioned, just several miles away was the head of the fire moving that direction. We needed to make sure that we understood the area, so a lot of our day was spent when we weren't triaging or talking to the citizens, just making our way around the streets of those neighborhoods to ensure that we could find our way in the dark, in the smoke, if things were to go badly, that we were prepared to make our way safely through those streets and protect as many homes as we could. Other assignments that we had in the Santa Barbara area were infrastructure protection. This here is a water treatment facility that treats water for all of Santa Barbara County. Very high value infrastructure that needed to be protected. If you see there at the back by the drying pools there, that was the location of Camp Utah. So we spent many a night here. This was kind of our home base. This is where we would meet with our divisional supervisor and also meet the other oncoming crews and pass off the information we needed to pass off to them. Our first night on the Thomas Fire, after we'd just made camp in Camp Utah, we received a call from another division supervisor who was up on the top of the mountain at the head of the fire, and they were experiencing some extreme fire behavior, and they were concerned that the fire was going to jump their line and subsequently head towards the neighborhoods that we were protecting. He asked if we could spare our Type 6 engines. Again, those are the small grass trucks. The Type 1 engines would not fit where they needed to go. And after dark, and in area that they have never seen before, we sent our 3 Type 6s up over the top, across the ridgeline of a mountain to where the fire was active, and they were instrumental in helping hold the fire at that point. Here's a picture of them returning. This is, you can see a giant bulldozer line that's been cut on the very, very top of the mountains in the back of the Santa Barbara area. The next morning, we got a sober reminder of just how much was at stake, and this wasn't all just excitement, and that lesson was made clear with the passing of fire engineer Corey Iverson from Cal Fire in San Diego. He was on a different side of the fire, and he was separated from his crew. They had extreme fire behavior. The winds kicked up, and he was burned over and killed. You can see him with his wife and their 2-year-old daughter, and she was also pregnant. So very, very sad. The passing of firefighter Iverson was a really sobering experience for all of us. It really brought home how real things were. And looking around the camp, it was definitely a reality check to see all of these Cal Fire firefighters walking around wearing the same patch as engineer Iverson was wearing, and remembering that this was somebody on their team, somebody on their department that had been killed. And it really changed the tone of the whole deployment from that point on. It was much more somber. The Sundowner Winds are what they call the Santa Anas in Santa Barbara, and we were warned multiple times about what could happen and what sort of erratic fire behavior we could expect if these Sundowner Winds were to arrive on, I want to say it was our 3rd night in the Santa Barbara area. We were warned from our divisional supervisor that they were expecting Sundowner Winds. We were told to stay alert, to not get too entrenched in camp, and that the winds were supposed to arrive at around 2 o'clock in the morning, and that they were expecting the fire to jump the line and head towards the neighborhoods that we were in. If that were to happen, they had already informed us that they would pull us and position us closer to the front of the fire in an attempt to keep it from doing any more damage. We waited up all night and nothing ever happened, and we went to get some coffee in the morning, and we're preparing to pass off to the oncoming crews, and we noticed a glow coming over the top of the mountain on the picture on the left, and we got a call from our division supervisor that told us that the winds had arrived and they were just late, and that he needed us to hold in place because they hadn't got the next day's resources on site yet, and that they may need to deploy us in. So that was a pretty intense couple of hours as we held over for the other crews, preparing and making sure that we were ready to go, thinking that this fire is going to get into these neighborhoods that we're protecting, that we're responsible for, that we've spent 2 weeks building relationships with the people. We're familiar with them. We feel like part of their community. They've been great to us, and now this fire is going to threaten their homes. We stayed until about 10 or 11 o'clock in the afternoon until they finally had enough crews on hand that were fresh to be able to get a handle on things, and they felt comfortable enough sending our task force back to camp to try and get some sleep. While we were sitting there, evacuation orders for Santa Barbara and Monticino were activated. That was very surreal. These are screenshots of a couple of our phones letting everybody know in that area to evacuate. Mandatory evacuation. This were the neighborhoods that we were in. You can even see on one of them that it says, evacuate, leave now. There was no mincing of words. It was very direct. They wanted everybody out. The next day, they were able to get a handle on that. They were able to stop it and hold it at their line that they had hoped. The next day we came on, Cal Fire decided to try to put this thing out and hit it really hard with Airpower. So it was pretty impressive to watch the air show, to watch some of their 15 helicopters and 23 air tankers or whatever it is, come in and pick up and dump over and over and over for nearly sun up to sundown. And they were able to get it knocked down and get it controlled. And luckily the weather was cooperating. The fire containment jumped in just that one day, or in just those 2 days, from 30% to 60%. And we were subsequently demobilized 24 hours later. CAL FIRE felt comfortable enough that they got a handle on it. They stopped it where they needed to stop it, and anywhere else that the fire was continuing to run was into areas that weren't occupied. Now we're just working on finalizing the paperwork for reimbursement by Cal OES. Remember, and I think it's important to point out to people that maybe don't understand how this works, this was a request for aid with a promise of reimbursement. This by no means was charity on our part. We were happy to help, and I'm glad we could, but the city will recoup its costs. We are also in the process of identifying what and how we could improve in regards to our response if California calls again. Just small things, nothing big, some paperwork things, just lining things out as a county, so that we can all be on the same page as far as compensation and some other things are concerned. Thank you, council. Thank you, citizens. We couldn't have done any of this without you guys and your support. You guys were great. We felt that we were cared for and taken care of the entire time. It really was a privilege to go to California with these other 5 individuals and represent the city of West Jordan.
While we were deployed in California, we gained valuable experience that we were able to bring back home to West Jordan if we ever have a large disaster like the ones they had in Ventura. We learned to communicate and to coordinate with other agencies, even outside of our own state. These skills that we learned dealing with the incident command system are invaluable, and we're lucky to have had the opportunity to learn them. All in all, 16 agencies from Utah were deployed to California. We were just one small part of that, just one component of one task force. It really was an honor to go down there and help. A very humbling experience to see the people of California in their time of need, and when they asked for our help, we were able to provide it.